So we bring in Zach Goodall from Swamp 24/7 to talk about these Florida Gators. And Zach, I'll give you the same prompt we gave everybody else, which is how can the football team learn from the SEC championship basketball team?
Sure. I guess if we're looking at it for this season, it might be a little late at this point with only one more transfer portal window to come. But the way I'd look at it is Florida needs to be more successful in the transfer portal when it comes to football. You look at basketball, and Todd Golden has largely built his teams through the portal and really hit on a lot of players there. That's not to say that Florida football hasn't done that. Billy Napier, I think, especially at wide receiver over the past couple seasons, has done a good job evaluating some, as Smoke put it, Moneyball type of players. But they've had a fair share of misses too, more at the top of the market, just a lack of aggression, so to speak. And you have to wonder in hindsight if some of those players could have helped Florida get over the hump a little bit faster than they seem to have believed. At least they've gotten over the hump entering this season.
Zach, last Wednesday, Cooper Tagnon and I sat down to discuss your tweet. Just speaking about DJ Lagway's lack of him throwing and his health concerns in spring football. We also unpacked Billy Napier's comments as well, too. But we're just trying to figure this thing out. What's the current status on DJ Lagway?
Yeah, I'm sorry for giving you guys a scare, but don't shoot the messenger. This is now, we're through 4 practices that media has gotten to see of the 5 that have been held so far. We didn't get to go out there Saturday, but through the 4 that we've been there for, DJ Lagway has not thrown a pass in front of us. He's simulated his footwork, as I mentioned. He's, as we see in these videos, doing handoffs and some other light work, but they're not letting him show off his arm, the arm that has gotten him so much hype going into this season and obviously last year. We've not seen one. Perhaps that's happening behind the scenes, but Billy Napier doesn't make it sound like that. He's offered that Lagway has been calling in plays to the quarterbacks who have been taking his reps in team drills. So at this point, he's unavailable in spring camp for all intents and purposes, other than the walkthroughs that he's doing. And what these injuries are, kind of still figuring that part out too. Billy Napier said that both of these injuries occurred in the postseason, that this is not unnormal, to quote him, but we really don't know what they are or how serious they are, the severity. We talk about the hamstring injury that he had against Georgia and he ended up playing through. We don't know for a fact that that is the lower body injury that's occurring here. Billy Napier just called it an undisclosed lower body injury, and that's what we got to work with, paired with the throwing shoulder.
When do we anticipate potentially seeing him throw the football, or was that not laid out?
That's not laid out. I would love to have a better update. And maybe this spring break gives him a little extra time to rest his shoulder, and he's close, right? I mean, when he's doing those footwork drills and you can see him kind of pulling his shoulder through, like you'd think he's wearing a helmet, he's wearing pads, you'd assume that it's going to happen sooner rather than later. But here we are again, 4 that we've seen, 5 that have been held in total, and it doesn't necessarily sound like it's something that's going to happen soon. I asked Billy Napier about it on Saturday, and he didn't offer a timeline of any sort.
Man, scary, scary, scary. I've never been through a situation where it wasn't a disclosed injury why the quarterback's not throwing the football at least once or attempting.
Well, and it's not as obvious as him walking around in a walking boot or a sling. From what you've determined, he looks fine. It's just you haven't seen him throw the actual football. But I want to ask you something too, just about. We learned this from a tweet. We also learn other things. You're a great follow on Twitter. You should check out Zach on Twitter. And something else that you mentioned is, in a positive way, is observing some of these freshmen and these newcomers that are coming in. And the wide receivers with Vernell Brown and Dallas Wilson are 2 that you said have been the biggest impact that you've seen so far. What have you seen from those guys early on in this spring ball?
Yeah, I would hate to overhype anything too much when they've, not had full pads on yet and it being so early. But I mean, these guys aren't struggling not having DJ Lagway out there, from what I can tell. 2 borderline 5-star receivers in the class of 2025. Vernell Brown, obviously being a legacy player. His father, he's got more than I can count on one hand amount of relatives that have played at Florida. Dallas Wilson being the post-signing day steal from Oregon. 2 fantastic players who do things very differently. I see Vernell Brown as someone who's really already got a different level of acceleration as a route runner, especially in the intermediate game, that I think could really do a lot for Florida out of the slot position. And Dallas Wilson came in looking like $1 million, I would say, already at 6'3", almost 220, and I think he's cut that down a little bit since, just looks like the X prototype kind of receiver, go up and get it, but has the athleticism to win with speed and be a sharp route runner as well. Now, Florida's got a pretty packed wide receiver room. Jamichael Sturdivant being a transfer that I do think could do very well at Florida, especially after a little bit of an up and down career out on the West Coast, and some other returning talents as well. It's not necessarily going to be easy for Wilson or Brown to go and log 60 receptions as freshmen, but at the same time, that's proven doable in this offense. Eugene Wilson did it as a freshman in 2022 or 23, excuse me. They certainly could carve out a role, just given, at least in my opinion, the early returns that we've already seen in practice. They seem very comfortable so far.
Zach, looking at this schedule this year, what's your expectation for this season?
I still go back and forth. I think that this is far and away the most talented roster that Billy Napier's had in his time at Florida. And I think that while it's taken a long time, and certainly some Florida fans have been less patient than others about it, that is a testament to what Billy Napier and his coaching staff have done in terms of just putting together a roster with depth really across the board, some star power, bringing players back who had the option to go into the NFL draft this year, reducing the number of transfers that they've been dealing with on an off-season to off-season basis. They've only had 13 out this off-season, by far the fewest under Napier so far. At the same time, I think some of the bigger concerns that most people will point to is play calling on offense, for one, and being so enamored by the systems that Napier and company have put in place over the past couple of years. It seems as though from an on-field schematic standpoint, they're really bought into what they're doing. And they're pointing to this 4-game winning streak and this really the strong end to last season as proof of concept that what they've been so dedicated to installing is working. Is that a worthwhile bet? There's still a lot of bad football throughout the Billy Napier tenure that one could argue maybe they're getting a little bit too far ahead in their belief in what they're doing. But you ask anyone inside this building, their goals, their ambitions are college football playoff or bust this season. I think Billy Napier would tell you that. I think most of the players would if they have not already put that on the record. And that's where it comes from. There's a sense of belief that's really radiating inside of UF, and their expectation at a minimum is to try and push it all the way.
Hearing that from fans too. My man Gator Boy in the YouTube chat right now thinks that the Gators go 10-2 and make it to the playoff. That would certainly be an exciting rebound. We saw them last year and on a high note, so got to continue that in 2025. Zach Goodall, thank you so much for joining us here on the Ultimate College Football Show. You can check out more of his work at Swamp 24/7. That's where you'll get all the great basketball coverage and football coverage as we get ready to go for March Madness, and the 2025 college football season will be here before we know it. I'm willing that into existence, Smoke. I hope it's here before we know it because it feels so far away. Let's go back and look at this this schedule for Florida, and you're taking a look at this. You heard what the expectations were from Zach's standpoint, and inside that building, they're talking about playoffs. How realistic is that? How many games are they winning here in 25?
It's a realistic goal, but I don't see him winning 10. I got him winning 8.
Oh, okay.
And when you look at it, it's just that middle of the schedule from LSU on till you get to A&M. You got to figure a way how to go at least 3-1 in that to even have a chance at getting 10. But I'm going to give him 8 just because of DJ Lagway and just what he does to that building. He brings so much attention and gives you so much energy in that building of belief. And when your quarterback is the best player and your quarterback gives you that belief, everybody around him, offensive line plays at a higher level because they don't want to see that guy get touched. Running backs in pass pro pick up the free linebacker coming through there. Yeah. Receivers will go up and make any catch for you just because they know that without this right arm of DJ Lagway, we don't really have a chance.
Mm-hmm. So if Florida, you have them going 8-4, if they win 9 games, just 3 losses, Gator Boy's back in the chat. He wants to know, can they make the playoff with 3 losses?
I think you can. Because that you put you in the same scenario that Alabama was in. And looking at their schedule, strength of schedule is going to play a role this year. And when you look at their schedule's pretty strong.
You mentioned DJ Lagway. We're not going to take him out for the season. We just want to see him throw the football in spring practice. Is that too much to ask? But if he doesn't go, I mean, how much is your prediction for Florida riding on his arm?
You go back to Florida of old, 4 wins.
Oh, jeez. So quite a bit is riding on DJ
Yes.
Lagway. Okay.
He is the straw that stirs the drink in that building. Without him, his legs and that right arm, and just the belief and energy that he brings to that building and the coaching staff and every single player, and also in recruiting, you don't have a chance.